Your wife is, let's say, making dinner or something, and you hear, babe, why are you banging those pots so loud? Like, what are you doing? That's not directed towards her. That was everything else that you had that day that you couldn't really relieve yourself of. And now it's being projected on her or the kids.
What's the best way to navigate that? A licensed mental health professional, James Harris. James.
Today, we're joined by James Harris, licensed mental health professional, U.S. Army veteran, and founder of the global Men to Heal movement, empowering men to break stigma, heal openly, and lead healthier lives.
During the pandemic, that 2+ years of people being stuck together, they realized, like, I'm not compatible with this person. We together based on attraction, or we was together for what the kids. So I created the board game because not only get them to enhance that relationship, but to get back to the basics of that relationship.
When a random person come and ask me, what's the worst thing you've seen? Tell me why people shouldn't ask that.
So, Michael Jordan, what is he known for?
That's
his passion, though, baseball. If he stuck with baseball,
even though when he went to the White Sox, he
think about it. People were like,
they're like, what is going on here?
Exactly.
Right.
But he realized, like, yo, my passion not gonna get me there.
Yeah.
But where I am now, I'm the best basketball player in the world. I can still be passionate about that, but do something else to impact other people.
Do you feel like where you're at today is your true God-given purpose?
Man, that's a hard question.
Welcome to another episode of A Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada, and as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world to talk about health, wellness, beauty, and mindset. Today, our guest, he flies here in from Virginia. This is an individual who's gone through, talk about a lot of tribulation in life, experience, a type of experience that most of us don't get to actually even experience ourselves. This is someone who's been on tour multiple times, Afghanistan, Iraq, as through the Army. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about what us men have to go through, how to enhance relationship. Today, we have the pleasure to have a licensed mental health professional, James Harris. James. Hey, let's go. Welcome to A Healthy Point of View podcast, brother.
Man, listen, I definitely appreciate you for having me out here, man. Definitely appreciate that warm introduction as well, man.
Absolutely, man. To start off, I want to thank you for your service, that you put yourself, your life on the line for our country. You know, obviously, I served as a firefighter paramedic for 12 years, putting my life on the line. I come from a family of first responders and military. My brother went out to Iraq, first ground troops in, and it's not easy. It's not easy for you, and it's not easy for your family.
Correct, yep.
You know, because I remember, dude, back then the cell phones weren't even around like today, and my mother, she wouldn't leave the house because she was just always waiting for that phone call for my brother to call when he was in Iraq. She was always watching the news. Oh, they killed X amount of Marines. She's thinking it's him. It was stressful.
No, it definitely was. Not only for, of course, the soldiers that's there, but definitely the family, similar to those reasons. And what we used to say is, when I work with soldiers now who are coming, returning home, I counsel the entire family, the soldier and the family, because the family might the soldier might physically was the person deployed, but the family technically is also deployed because they don't have that attachment. And it could just be different because the internet services oftentimes goes down while you're over there, and or the mail just get on the delay. So it's so many different things. By the time you do get the news, if somebody sent you a letter, or if you can't do the Skype or Zoom or anything like that, it can be stressful for you and the family.
Right.
So no, I definitely appreciate that, man.
Yeah. So, you know, much appreciated on what you've done. And now you're, you know, out here doing even things greater, right? With the individuals that are coming back home, with other people here within our community, right? You're doing things for the Black and Brown community, which is much appreciated. It's needed.
Definitely.
So before we get into all of that, I want the listeners and viewers to get to know who James Harris is. But I want to know more about your upbringing.
Okay.
Like around when you were like 5 years old, what happened to get you where you're at today?
Man, a couple of different things. So, first of all, like where I am now, I'm a husband, and I'm definitely a father. So 2 daughters, age 19 and age 13. So I got a freshman in college and then a eighth grader in junior high school. So
Okay.
that's
Okay.
a process in itself. And then my lovely wife definitely support me and everything that I do. So I'm appreciative of her. But to answer the other part of your question, my upbringing, man, I was typical kid, oldest of three in the household. Father died when I was 5 due to cancer. And then, of course, single mom situation, which was not an unfortunate situation, but just a fortunate situation. But for a lot of people, it can be viewed as unfortunate because that forces the older child to grow up a little bit faster with the assistance and help that they're giving to the parental figure.
Right.
So in my case, it got even more intense because my mama had, well, you don't have Phil, so you probably can understand this, but she had epilepsy.
Mm,
So for a lot of people who don't know, which means she can have random seizures.
right.
So epilepsy, and then of course sprinkled throughout the epilepsy, she had a series of strokes. So when I was about 8 or 9, in Virginia, Department of Social Services. It might be called something different in Florida or where your other listeners are, but Department of Social Services is pretty much the entity that handles foster care, juveniles, and all those type things. So anyway, they had to step in because it was one situation to where my mom didn't have a nurse on staff and she had a stroke, but we were in school, my brother and my younger sister. So the state viewed it as, well, if this happened with your kids, how you're able to, assist them or take care of them if you continue to have seizures or continue to have strokes and lose consciousness or whatever the case is. So they pretty much stepped in and from there we went to foster care, man.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that was a traumatic situation,
How old were you when that happened?
about 8 or 9.
8 or 9?
So yeah, 8 or 9. So in the foster care system for about 2 to 3 years, and then that family we were placed with was a pretty decent one. Still in contact with them to this day. But some things transpired within that situation to where me, my brother, and my sister, I'm the oldest of those, and we had to be separated. Went to a group home.
I was gonna ask you, did you guys stay together?
Yeah, initially we did, but we went to
Okay.
a group home, and then they separated us at that fact.
Oh,
Because
wow.
my sister, of course, she went to a girls' facility. My brother and I, um, in Virginia, we couldn't stay together because of how the bedding was or whatever. It was limited spaces, so we eventually went to separate group homes as well.
Wow.
So that was a whole thing, man. Just trying to keep it together. Continue to reach out to them, continue to have that family bond as well as checking on my mom and stuff like that. So when I mentioned earlier, it's a additive to being in that position as the oldest, taking up that mantle, trying to keep the family together, especially when it's something that wasn't necessarily your fault.
Right.
So
So to just dive a little bit deeper,
sure.
because I know a lot of the viewers and listeners are probably asking questions, in
Hmm.
their head. When that happened, you were still in communication with your mom?
Yeah, yeah, still to this day. Well, my mom is of course way older now, and she now additive. She's in the early stages of dementia,
Right, right.
So, but yeah, my mom, throughout that time, of course, she continued to have epilepsy, which the seizures were able to be managed with medication and all that, but the strokes continue to happen too.
Mm,
So yeah, she never, I guess, physically and legally was able to gain custody back of us due to that medical situation. Hopefully it's just a Virginia thing, man, because I don't wish that on nobody. You
right.
get what I'm saying? Um,
That's rough. That's very rough to go
yeah,
through that, especially as you're developing and growing.
correct.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's a form. You were in the military, so being in the military, you experience a certain PTSD, right?
correct.
But this is a PTSD from childhood. It's a childhood trauma.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. More so a lot of people are familiar with PTSD, but even before PTSD, you got acute stress disorder,
Right.
and you got complex trauma, which is those repeated traumatic events that's happening over and over. So for me, and during that time, of course, not just my family, but for a lot of other families who were in similar situations, it was more of a complex trauma situation. Because just think about just being, if you didn't have as much resilience as you could have, you can think like, oh man, nobody wants me, or question your faith, like why is this happening to me?
Right.
Just so many different factors. But of course, in that situation, just having strength and resilience and just wanting to be better and different, I just took a different outlook to ensure that I was doing everything I needed to do so my brother and my sister can have the support they need within their respective journeys, as well as the other kids I was in the group home with, so.
How did you keep yourself focused and keep yourself in that right mindset throughout that whole time?
Man, to be honest with you, that was the easy part. So what I did too, like, so I went to this military high school, called Franklin Military, which was the first publicly funded military school in the country. So I elected to go there for high school because I knew I was going to wear a uniform, so I didn't have to worry about buying clothes and doing all this other stuff.
Right.
So as an employee, I worked at a grocery store. So the money that I get pay wise, I'll make sure my brother and sister had everything that they need, because they went to a public school,
Oh,
obviously.
that's
So
pretty smart.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I didn't want them to be in a position to where people would tease them or bully them for being in the group homes. And, some group homes take care of the residents, but a lot of it is just money grabs. So you get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't want to risk the group home not giving them adequate things. So they probably did the essentials, but of course, when you're in school, kids would probably be like, "Oh, look at those shoes."
Of
So
course.
my point is, I went to the military school, so I didn't have to buy clothes, but I was able to use my funding and take care of my brother and sister. Um, so for me, that was a part of the let me just stay focused and do what I got to do. But to fast forward from that part, man, I emancipated myself at 16.
Mm.
Yeah, so
How you do that?
just got with my caseworker, man. It was like, hey, listen, because in Virginia, you age out at 18
Right.
anyway. So the next 2 years, um, for me, I was just looking at things differently. Like, yo, if I can wait to graduate high school, I'm gonna age out anyway and then have to figure it out. Or I can do it now, get this motivation, stack this money up that I'm working, and just make it happen. So went through the process with Department of Social Services and was able to it got granted. The judge had to sign off on it or whatever the case is. So in theory, I was a legal adult at 16,
Wow.
which it was cool, while you were in it, because I'm my own guardian at that point. So when my classmates and other people had to get their permission slip signed,
You signing it
I'm
yourself.
signing mine myself,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was pretty dope, man. So from that period though, I was just on growth mode, just motivation mode, entrepreneurship mode. And it was good, I'm happy the way things turned out, to be honest with you.
That's amazing. I'll tell you, in my lifetime, almost 40 years, I'm 38, 39 in January. And I've, I've, I have never met somebody who was an emancipated minor, ever.
Yeah.
The only person I ever heard of that was Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone.
Oh
That,
yeah,
that he did
because
that
his
at a young
parents
age.
was taking his
Right.
money or something. Yeah.
hmm
Hmm.
So very interesting, man. That definitely shows that you had that in your heart
Yeah.
from a very young age, man. That's so. How did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah. So to backtrack to that point though, so while you're a ward of the state or in foster care, group home, the idea is, hey, this is a traumatic event, like you mentioned. The state recommends that people get therapy.
Mm.
And it was a good recommendation, but for me, it was an unrelatable process. I'm this young black kid from the projects. You got me with this old white lady. So it wasn't a cohesive process. And I felt more that it just seemed rehearsed and like a check in the box. So I didn't obtain as much as I could from that therapeutic journey. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Let me just go through it. Fast forward, of course, the Army situation, 8 years, two deployments, one Iraq, one Afghanistan. And I knew I was different, similar to what we talked about earlier about the family deploying and stuff like that. I wanted to be better for my family opposed to coming back, just physically here, but still distant, dealing with stuff. So I tried therapy again. And even with that process too, it was an unrelatable experience because a lot of the workers at the veterans don't have combat experience,
Mm.
and they go from a book's perspective. And that's part of a lot of the reasons too why a lot of veterans tend not to go to therapy and or do the groups.
They feel like they don't understand them.
Yeah, it's not cohesive because like right now I can talk to you about like you save people, you pull people from fires, you know what it feels like to rescue somebody, you know
Right.
what it feels like to hear certain things and smell certain things. That's relatable to another veteran, but to somebody that you're explaining this to and they give you an answer that seems like, oh, you read that in the book or you seen that on a case study.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. So veterans tend to go more to the group because it's that collective universality experience. So that was the second time I was like, yo, you know what? This might be something I got to do. I
Yeah.
got the experience from the system standpoint of being a youth in foster care group home. I got this experience from being a veteran who needs support and don't really feel like it's there. And then, of course, I got the realization of living as a black man, trying to navigate life and those pressures that come with that, not only from a societal standpoint, but just from a standpoint of a masculine standpoint of men are supposed to be whether
Right.
that's stoic or hold emotions or whatever the case is. So that led me to say, you know what? Let me go back to school and get this thing on the right track. Because even before that, I was doing the entrepreneurship thing. I had a party bus, had an art gallery, carpet cleaning company, couple properties, so I liquidated all those things. I still got my properties, but the art gallery, party bus, carpet cleaning company, and a couple other investments, I was like, you know what? Just go back to school. So I was able to do that. And of course, since I was a veteran, I had the military benefits. So I just completed school and here we are. Now I'm licensed.
That's amazing you took advantage of that because there's a lot of
Yeah.
guys in the military that don't take advantage of that.
Yeah,
They had the
definitely.
GI Bill and all that other stuff.
Hmm.
And I told my brother when he got out of the Marines, I said, take advantage of that.
Yeah, you might
Yeah.
as well. It's definitely beneficial. I would say that is definitely one of the added bonuses. And in situations to where it can roll over to your spouse or your kids too.
Right.
So that might be something that a lot of other veterans can look into because you already earned it, you sacrificed for it, so you might as well take advantage of it to further your education, whether it's from a bachelor's or a master's, and or they do trades now. So that
Right.
might be something that they can
Yeah.
benefit
That's
from.
what my brother did. He did the same thing. He went to a fire academy, paramedic
Mhm.
school,
Oh,
and
nice.
he works for the company now as one of the techs,
Dope.
So, um, so let me ask you, do you feel like where you're at today is your true God-given purpose?
Um, Purpose, man, that's a hard question. I don't know if it's like my true God-given purpose. I do feel that I'm in a space to where I'm making a difference and I get joy from that difference. Because passion and purpose is one of those things of your passion might not necessarily be your purpose, but you are getting fulfillment from assisting other people meet theirs.
Right.
Because I'm mending a lot of families, I'm helping a lot of communities, I'm helping a lot of people reach elevations within themselves that they probably wouldn't unlock otherwise. And what I mean by passion and purpose is different because think about like if you take somebody like Michael Jordan, you know what I'm saying? What is he known for?
Basketball.
What's his passion though? Baseball.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If he stuck with baseball,
Even though when he went to the White Sox, he
think
did
about it.
again.
People were like,
They're like,
"Jordan."
what? What is going on here?
Exactly.
Right.
But he realized like, yo, my passion not gonna get me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But where I am now, I'm the best basketball player in the world. And it's something that he probably never said, but his peers say, yo, he's the best. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So his passion was baseball, but his not even purpose, but something that he realized like, I can still be passionate about that, but do something else to affect and impact other people. So I view it that way.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you bring up Jordan, man. I was just having conversations about Jordan. He's, so he was at the Khaled, we
Yeah.
the best foundation, uh, uh, nonprofit thing that he does every year, the golf
Mhm.
tournament, which is sponsored by Jordan, but Jordan doesn't show up. Jordan kind of is always kind of
Yeah.
just doing his own thing, but he's suing NASCAR right now. I don't know if you saw that, which
No,
is
I know he had a couple cars, but I wasn't familiar
he's
that
suing them.
Oh man.
He's suing them, and it's hit the headlines the last couple of days,
Mm.
and that's unlike Jordan. But it's always interesting to kind of it's interesting you bring it up. But when I was just talking about him the last couple of days, so let me ask you, when we talk about men, right,
Yeah.
that go through what they go through, and I can relate with what you were saying about the counselor, the therapist, because in the fire department, it happened with us. Like suicide rates were going up. They decided to bring someone in. It was like this little old lady,
Yeah.
a psychiatrist or whatever. And all the guys was just like, nobody wanted to even stay in the room. It's like, this
Mhm.
lady doesn't know anything of what we
Yeah,
go through.
because it's just like a projection. You viewing it as like this little white lady is not carrying people from the fourth floor, or she's not, kicking indoors, or she's not doing whatever the case is. So for a lot of veterans, that tend to be the issue.
Right.
Not that they judge the person on the other end, but it's automatically assumed that it's going to be an unrelatable process. Like, because again, when you start talking about, like, just think about how many veterans now, got younger kids and they want to go to amusement parks and stuff like that. But that veteran is like, oh man, it's gonna be noises there. It's gonna be tight crowds bumping people.
Yeah.
But to us, when we was overseas, like if you get bumped or you get tapped or you see all these crowds, your head on a swivel because it could be snipers, it can
Right.
be IEDs, and it can just be so many different things. So telling your kid like, nah, that like my first couple years back, like when my daughter wanted to watch fireworks on New Year's and the 4th of July and stuff like that, that was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Telling my wife, hey, y'all go ahead, I'll sit this one out. Just because. But in hindsight, you realizing like again, like it's not on them to understand that. It's
Right.
me. Let me fix or try to make some changes on my end so I can participate in those things. But of course, as my daughter's grown old now, or at least older, they understand, and they get when I go to a restaurant and want to sit in a certain chair and want to
Right.
do certain things, so they understand it too. Because again, like it was a family adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what I'll tell you, some people will just never understand though. You
Hmm.
know, because when I was at the fire department, every day I went to work, the stuff I saw was people's worst moments.
Yeah.
Right. So things like that, how you said, sitting in that certain chair facing the door, things like that. We do it because we've seen something that potentially
Can
causes us
cause
to
the
think.
harm.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. You've seen
Yeah.
that type of situation or a potential outcome of that situation.
Hmm.
Especially like you mentioned, people worst moment to where you got to put somebody on a stretcher or you got to breach this door, or you got to do certain things. Just to be in that situation and to hear somebody on the other end that's supposed to be the expert, uh, it's unrelatable, or they give you an answer that seems like, oh, you read this on chapter 3.
Right.
It's not one of those things where the empathy can take over and somebody say, yo, you know what? I've been there. This is what I did to assist that, or these are some things that you can actually do to help,
Yeah.
and it's more relatable. That's why in the group process is a little bit better because you'll have 2 to 3 other veterans saying, hey man, I did this, or I this is what I watched, or this is,
Yeah.
it's more relatable opposed to it feeling scripted and somebody's like, oh man, I'm just
Yeah,
here.
you kind of sometimes feel like you're being a little judged as well too, if not.
Yeah.
And the one thing that worked at the fire department was when that didn't work, they ended up getting a few guys that volunteered and they put them through the courses to
Mm.
be able to help the other guys.
Yeah, so
Right,
a
peer.
peer
Yeah.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so even now, those are more common now for people who have challenges with addiction. They call them peer recovery specialists.
Okay.
So it's more people who've walked that journey, who've overcome their situation of substance use. They also got peer recovery specialists in other fields such as gambling, because people would much receive it more from somebody who've been there,
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
that's definitely a beneficial, too.
So when dealing with men, so us as men, especially
Yeah.
if you go into one of these manly jobs, right? First
Mhm.
responder, military, or even construction,
Yeah.
you're programmed to suck it up. We're men. We'll deal with it later, right? We don't show emotions.
Correct.
So I want you to talk a bit about living through silence versus vulnerability and the realization moment between both.
Yeah, so it just varies. So you mentioned the employment aspect of it, like these A-type jobs. But think about it from a societal standpoint. A lot of boys are brought up in that same situation. Hey, boys don't cry. Boys aren't supposed to do that. Don't sit that way. Don't play with those toys.
Right.
Hey, don't go around there with the pink stuff. Get this blue stuff or this green stuff. So it's conditioned earlier within males' lives, unfortunately, and not to generalize it, but more than less, those things happen. And then, of course, as you continue to matriculate and go into the field of employment, even before that, maybe college, just think about how many males would probably be gymnasts if they weren't judged for it.
Right.
Like I grew up in the projects, man. It was like mattresses on the corner. You see people, we used to flip and do
Everybody
all.
was flipping.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. You
That
like
was the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
growing up.
so you can relate to it, but just think about like having a male gymnast.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like just think about that person would be judged, or even now if somebody's a male cheerleader.
Right.
So just those minor things of will pivot and change pretty much the trajectory of a male life. But when you talk about the vulnerability aspect, the to show yourself and to be free to your colleagues and or your partner without being judged, that's a whole different thing. A lot of men feel that they don't have that ability or don't have that circle to be able to do that. And if they do, they still have some reservation based on it because they don't want to feel like I'm a burden to somebody else. Like I'm not going to talk to my wife about it because I don't want her to stress. So it's putting others before yourself again. So
Right.
even if you are a first responder or military or just pretty much a male, that's your thought. Like, I ain't gonna tell my mom this because I don't want her to stress. Or I ain't gonna tell my wife this because I don't want my. So you still taking on that role of, I guess, yourself as protecting, but in essence, you still wearing yourself down because you're not offloading it or relieving yourself of this situation.
Right.
So in those cases, if you don't have a therapist or a good support system to offload this stuff, you like overfilling the backpack. Eventually, it's going,
It's gonna explode.
correct.
Yep. Yep. Interesting enough, you brought up the speaking to your wife.
Yeah.
When you, let's say, you come home from work or
Mhm.
or whatever. And when I was at the fire department, they actually created a special like committee for the wives,
Nice.
so they can understand how to deal with their partner when they come home.
That's good.
Because if you get a crazy night where you had shootings, stabbings, people ejected out of vehicles, things happening to kids, you're coming home with that. Those are demons
And
that don't leave your
correct.
head.
And at the immediate, and it's hard to say, hey, daddy, don't feel like talking right now, or babe, just give me a moment. It comes out as that secondary emotion, which is anger.
Right.
So displacement. And a lot of people don't understand that. And there's a chapter in my book on displacement actually, because like just think about what you mentioned. It's a heck of a day, traumatic experiences at the back, whether it's, argument at the office or you rescuing somebody, those things. And when you go home, it's, your wife is, let's say, making dinner or something, and you hear like, babe, why are you banging those pots so loud? Like, what are you doing? Why is it so hot in here? That's not directed towards her.
Right.
That was everything else that you had that day that you couldn't really relieve yourself of or say. And now it's being projected on her or the kids, which is an unfortunate situation. But it happens a lot to people who oftentimes don't address those things or process those things in healthy ways.
So on that topic,
Yeah.
what's the best way to navigate that?
So it sounds like your department did a phenomenal thing by allowing the wives or partners to know, like, hey, listen, it might not be a situation that you want to talk about right now. So give them, whatever their function was, sounds good. But I would say for the other people, communication is definitely best. You don't get in trouble often if you over communicate. The lack of communication oftentimes get people in trouble.
Over communication, man.
So
Yep.
if it's easier, babe, I had a rough day. Let me just take the shower and I'm gonna get with you in a minute. Or talk to your kids the same way, hey, give daddy a moment. Opposed to coming home and when your wife tried to talk to you or your kids you push them away or you present that anger or that, that displacement that we just spoke of. So it's easier to communicate those things and then hopefully your partner or your kids will understand like, all right, cool, dad just got home. He may have had a rough day. So you're communicating those things. You're putting that information out there so they would know. Not only that, you can also do the self work on your way home, ride in silence, think about it, debrief, or talk to somebody else on your way home to relieve yourself of that situation. Something I try to do just from all the sessions that I do in a day is definitely, some mindfulness on my way home. So I'm riding in silence just so I can clear my head. So when I do go home, my wife wants to talk about her day. I'm not minimizing her day. I'm not saying I don't just talk to somebody who almost died by suicide. I don't talk to somebody today who was in an abusive relationship or whatever the case is. You want to talk about this. So I'm not minimizing her experience. I'm just processing on my way home to prepare for what she might bring me. because again, it's not on her. And then, of course, you can also do different mindfulness exercises, whether that's before you get home and or in between home. A lot of people go to the gym after work. That probably can be your exercise too,
Right.
that you can do. So there's a couple different things you can incorporate before you get home, which would be beneficial.
Yeah. It allows you to truly like decompress, right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't go to actual therapy.
Right.
If you did go to therapy, it'll be a couple different exercises that they may offer, or that can just be your space to free yourself. So when you can go home, you can be more attentive and present within those moments with your family or your partner.
So James, we got a lot of doctors that tune into the podcast that
Yeah.
listen to the message, and working in the healthcare
Hmm.
field, they experience a lot of things that they see as well.
Sure.
Working in the hospital, or seeing patients that have cancer or other type of
Hmm.
chronic illnesses, and one of the things that has always bothered me the most is when a random person who knows that I was a fireman, or when I was a fireman, they'd come and ask me, "What's the worst thing you've seen?"
Oh man, yeah.
Tell me why people shouldn't ask that.
So one is making that person they're asking relive that worst thing that they've
Dude,
seen.
it is
Because
every
now
time, and
you're
I can't stop
filtering.
it. When they
Yeah,
ask it, I start thinking about it. That train accident, the kid that
correct.
got, and it just won't go away. It is and I want anyone listening to the podcast. This message is so important, and I'm happy that you're going to touch up even more on it. It is the worst thing you could ask someone who does service work.
Yeah.
You know.
Because now you're going through this Rolodex of catastrophic events,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh man, I thought that was the worst one, but what about when this happened?
Mm-hmm.
What about when that happened? So of course that's why you don't want to do it, because you don't want that person that you're asking to relive those moments. But then two, you want to be on the other end of that, obtaining or receiving these catastrophic events, because subconsciously they're gonna do something to you, because now you're thinking about the 2 to 3 events that this person just mentioned. And why would you want to be in that position to just ask somebody that question? Because it can do a lot of damage to that person's psyche if they were having a good day.
Right. Yeah.
Because again, now you're reliving all these things that you just mentioned. But of course, aside from that, it's like now you probably even thinking about those people that you saved, or those entities that you did work with. Like, oh, I wonder how they turned out, or what they're doing now, or you're questioning yourself. If I would have just did this, it would have, So
Right.
it's opening too many doors and unknowns for that person all over again.
Yeah.
So hopefully they would reduce asking those questions.
And I do think that for the person who gets asked that question, like when people ask me that, I don't just flow with it. I actually stop them and let them know that that's not a question they should ask, and
And you
and
should, and I
explain
think,
why.
yeah, and I think that's the important thing. Opposed to answering it, you definitely let them know, like, hey, that's not an appropriate question, because
Right.
I do that all the time. Like, if somebody asks me, hey, what's the most severe case you work with? Hey, boss, that's not something that I'm willing to share with you, because one, it was personal to them, but to me, that's not something that I want to think about.
Right.
So, and hopefully from there, they internalize and be like, oh, you know what? I'm not probably not gonna ask nobody else,
Right.
but you know how people are. They probably
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
somebody else.
They're always digging.
Yep.
So through a lot of the stuff that you've gone through, right? War, foster care, grief.
Mhm.
Um, you've always been able to maintain a soft heart, right? A lot of people can get very sour and
Yeah.
just become this very this type of person that no one ever wants to be around.
Yeah. So a lot of people within, who've experienced something similar to what I did, of course they become numb and desensitized to a lot of different stuff. And that's oftentimes the response. So for me, that wasn't the response, because I'm always doing the self work. I'm always trying to, or I'm always aspiring to be better and doing better. So again, that's working on myself mentally, physically, and emotionally, and allowing not only my wife to support me, but I'm a therapist with a therapist. I make sure that I get this up off me,
Right.
so I can be better for my family, my community, and those alike.
I always tell every doctor or any expert who sits in that chair that you're in is who heals the healer,
Mm.
right? sometimes we're so focused on helping other people out.
Yeah.
What about us? Because what happens is we end up absorbing a lot of
Correct.
that
Yeah, you weren't
negativity.
it. Yep. And so for me, like I always tell people that you definitely got to moderate what you ingest,
Right.
and a lot of people think like dieting or fasting is nutritional based. It's mental based too. What you're listening to, what you're viewing, all those things have impacts on you subconsciously.
Right.
So it's not just, all right, I'm gonna fast for a couple of days. I'm not gonna eat meat or, breads and all that stuff. But it's also, hey, I'm not gonna listen to music talking about, harming people. I'm not gonna look at movies with cursing or explode. Like all those things matter. You definitely want to
Right.
ensure that you are fasting and moderating what you ingest, especially in this climate now of just over analyzing of the politics, and we seeing what's playing out from a standpoint of just certain attacks on different classes of people.
Right.
So those things you definitely have to moderate as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So you you got a men's journal.
Yeah.
Man, just express yourself.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So even before the journal, I created this movement called Men to Heal. Men to Heal focuses on men's overall wellness, whether it's mental health, physical health, and of course the emotional health. And I created that from an assignment that I had in grad school. Those generic assignments on the questions. If it's one population you can work with, who would it be? So eventually, the initial population that I said veterans. I can, just to explain to you why. And then I realized, like, oh man, but what about the men? Is they rarely have anything. And then I'm just looking around at my cohort. I was the only black male. I was only one of three males, and then the other eight people were women, and it was only other one black woman. So out of all those, it was two black people, and I was one black male or three males.
Wow.
So I'm looking like this anecdotal pod cohort is probably representation of the world in the field. So the
Right.
field is definitely 80+% women. It's not a lot of black people within the field. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna just do a project on men. That's what I called it. Wind up it was a successful um I got a successful grade on it, and then I just thought about it, So fast forward, finished grad school, graduated or whatever. I was going through my residency, getting my hours for license attainment, and then I was working at this phenomenal outpatient practice owned by two women, and they did so much for women within the community. They did like health and welfare stuff for a lot of
Okay.
women in presentations. So I always used to be like, hey, when we gonna do something for the men? When we gonna do something for the men? So
What
I
was
was,
their answer?
hey, we're gonna do it soon. Just a typical political answer.
Right.
Politically correct. Hey, we got you. We're gonna figure something out, whatever the case is. So I was like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna just create it. Then I thought back to the assignment that I had, Men to Heal. So I at this time is when I owned the art gallery. So I was like, you know what? So when my art gallery closed at maybe 5 or 6 o'clock, put out some flyers, put out the information on social media saying, hey, from 6 to 8, having a community talk, men's mental health, and invite out your brothers, your uncles, your dads,
Nice.
or your males, whatever. And before I knew it, man, it was full.
Wow.
So I started doing it, mental heal, and then it was mental health and athletes, mental health and first responders, just different pockets of
Right.
those things. And I was like, oh man, you know what? Let me just continue to grow it. So then, in that case, is when I, created the merch from it, because it was an advocacy tool. So when people see me wearing the shirt or see somebody else wearing the shirt, they get to asking questions. Oh man, my uncle need to talk to somebody. You know a good therapist? Or hey man, my dad was going through XYZ. He ain't know. So that's why a lot of people was getting the shirts, which was unfortunate for. And then of course the social media presence grew from that.
Right.
Just me doing the talks in person and speaking and doing different things, you know, similar to probably what y'all going through now. People send you questions and hey, how can I deal with this? Or what do you think about this? Or what are the resources for that? Or hey, my uncle's going through this, or my dad, this happened to him. So I'm like, all right, cool. I can answer everybody's question, but it seems to be these common ones that people want to know.
Right.
So that's what led to the book. So it's over 65 different topics. I'm talking about grief, I'm talking about anger, I'm talking about displacement, trauma, pride, ego. There's so many different topics that men typically don't talk about unless they're in those male dominant spaces. Like you can, when you was a firefighter, y'all can talk in the locker room about things that you probably didn't share with your wife or your partner, but
Absolutely.
you know, your wife and your partners and those people who need to know. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's easy to be in a barbershop getting your round up or your haircut and you saying, man, I'm just dealing with this and this is going wrong in my life because you talking to the fellas. So everything I felt that men or boys have encountered but didn't have the ability to process or weren't willing to process with their partners, I just try to put it in a book. And it's a option for men to write out their answers and or draw out their answers too, because a lot of people get the artistic value and be able to see those different schemas from those answers. So it just became a fortunate tool, man. A lot of male organizations do get the book. They buy them in bulk for the younger population and or um, just different male dominant places get it and support. And a lot of
Man.
wives buy it too, which is fortunate because what got the wives buying it is like I encourage the wife, like, hey, get this book. Whatever you want to talk about with your partner, circle it, underline it, highlight it, give it to him and tell him, hey, next time we go out, we're gonna talk about these things.
Right.
So now it feels like it's something that we're doing to enhance the relationship opposed to like a chore to him.
Right.
He benefited because, all right, baby, you want to talk about pride or ego or anger, he's gonna have to be like, oh man, she want to talk, but let me not ignore her because she gave me this assignment. So it felt more like a thing for us because she can now say, hey babe, when you was upset, you reacted this way or you did this, and I didn't, opposed to like her trying to talk to him and she probably is met with resistance
With
or
resistance. Right.
that wall. But now it's a tool, it's an exercise. So it's been real fortunate for a lot of partners to gift it to the males within our
Man,
lives.
shout out to those two women that you were with because that was the cue to bring you to this book, which, for me, I'm all about accountability,
Yeah,
right? And
definitely.
having a tool like this
And that's what it is.
is,
Yep,
is what gets you to climb up that ladder and,
definitely.
and reach that level of success
Hmm.
with your mental health, right?
Sure. Yep. Because again, a lot of people, specifically men, might be going through these things and might never touch it or address it. Like just think about depression. I encounter so many athletes, whether collegiate or professional, who still think depression is a cheerleader's diagnosis. So when I re-educate them on what depression is, from not only the mental health and emotional symptoms, but from the physical symptoms, the tightness in chest, the gastrointestinal issues, the sweaty palms and all those things, in addition to lack of eating, sleeping, poor appetite, and isolation, loneliness, thoughts of harming yourself. All just running down the basic symptomology of what it is. They start to realize, like, oh man, this is not just for cheerleaders or women. I haven't been hanging with my teammates like I used to, or I don't eat, before practice like I used to. I am waking up in the middle of the night and can't fall back to sleep. So after we started breaking it down, we realized like, yo, boss, you just depressed. Let's figure it out because we got something to aspire to. We know what it is. We can treat it now. We
Right.
can make some lifestyle changes. We can do some different things to get you out this state right here, opposed to you were running from it and resisting what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness to have depression. That impacts millions of people every day. And if you know what it is, we can do some different things.
Yeah. James, what one of the things that I've seen a lot of is people know that they have a problem, right? That there's solutions out there and you just need the appropriate guidance, right?
Yeah.
To lead you in the right direction. But what ends up happening is people don't want to go to a therapist because they don't want to feel like they're labeling themselves as being sick.
Well, not only that, so you said people know they have a problem. Some people don't. Some people are numb and desensitized. Just think about how many times you heard somebody say, I'm just this way. Or
Oh, a lot.
I've been this
A
way a
lot.
long time.
But see that's what exactly where I'm going. It's like they don't want to be labeled as having a problem. They don't want to be labeled as being sick. And one of the things that I try to do more on the clinical side is like, it's not that you're sick.
Mhm.
It's it's how I always say every great athlete has a coach. You know, it might be just one sentence that therapist tells you that will just change the trajectory of your entire life
And
in
that's
a
the main
positive way.
thing. Like, not even that, just giving resources or advocating or, hey, here's another way to think about that.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
like I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of somebody, whether they were, a millionaire or professional athlete or whomever, and I'm like, hey, what's the alternative way you can think about that? Or what's another way that you can phrase that situation? And they start to think about it and they realize like, oh man, I see why it happened to me. Or it could have
Right.
been, XYZ. Like those things matter. But to hear that from somebody, yeah, definitely. And the accountability piece is definitely important too, because now you got something to go back to. Because hey, boss, you agreed to this. You said that you
Right.
were gonna do this. So you can't be upset when your partner bring it back up or when you are in your work environment or on your team environment and somebody say, hey boss, you said this, you agreed to this. You didn't hold up your end of the bargain. Accountability is big within that.
Right.
So
Now you work very close. You've worked on projects with the NFL Players Association, right?
correct. Yep. And now, I'm sure you've seen over the past 3 months, there's been 3 NFL players who died by suicide or so.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in retalks now with them to assist and strategize on how to do certain things within our locker room. So hopefully those things come back to fruition and it's more fluid conversations opposed to just, I don't want to say performative. Hopefully they are in a position to say, "Hey, let's get somebody in here and let's try to figure this thing out." And doing my anecdotal research with these athletes who are still active in the athletic field and or whom retired, they just realize like the resources piece that you mentioned,
Right.
because a lot of people just think about how many people say, you got $1 million, you just signed a big contract. And what you depressed for? What you upset for? But that's not the bulk of it. They're
Right.
away from their family, they're traveling.
Traumatic brain injury.
CTE, which can't be diagnosed until after you die,
Right.
unfortunately. Just the isolation piece, that loneliness piece, that piece of feeling like, hey, I got to perform every day. Like, what am I not?
Yeah.
Just judging yourself or comparing yourself to that athlete in the locker room who might want your spot. So a lot of those things impact how they perform and play. But of course, a lot of those things aren't viewed by the public. I paid my money to watch you on TV or see you in a game. I don't care what you got going
Right.
on outside the field. But of course, you can't really just say that to the owners or the NFLPA, or the NBA Association for that matter. So you have to do more of the research of maybe the players have to advocate more to get somebody in here to
Right.
talk about different things post their career because a lot of athletes are retiring and feel like, yo, what am I gonna do now? Because every couple of days I was in practice. Every Sunday or Saturday I played or Thursday. So
And
those things
that
matter.
could cause a lot of depression when that
Depression
happens.
because of
Yeah.
the I was in a system for a long time. Now I don't know what the heck to do. I was watching an interview with Gilbert Arenas. He mentioned it. He was depressed after he left the NBA. He's like, I used to just get in my car and drive because I ain't know what else to do. My kids
Wow.
was in school, my wife was somewhere else. What I'm gonna do? I'm
Yeah.
sitting around the house. I'm normally in practice or I'm normally, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now your identity is tied to that. Like, who am I?
Right.
Like, let me recreate myself or let me at least learn who I am. And that's the biggest thing I push too with athletes. Who are you? Like, your identity is not just you were a great player or you were a player. It's more than
It's
that.
more than that. So our clinics, we're working with the NFL Sisters and Services that work very close with an NFL
Sure.
Players Association, and we one of our doctors is on the scientific advisory board
Hmm.
with the Almonds Clinic, and we're working with these players for the traumatic brain injury.
Nice.
And I'll tell you what, until I started actually being part of it and listening to the stories of these current and former NFL players, it's tragic.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that the family goes through, what they're going through with their health,
Hmm.
having seizures randomly because of it, and the depression, and then they get put on all these medications.
Correct.
They get the wrong diagnosis. Then it causes a chemical imbalance. It's a serious thing.
It
You know?
is, and again, as a fan, as somebody who's a patron, you like, yo, why you not still playing? Or, all those, you go back to all those things, but of course they're dealing with some internal things. And then, yes, that also leads over to the family because to them, your dad or your brother or you're my husband, opposed to this gladiator who's putting your body on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that I like to talk about, the sector in business that I'm in, the biohacking, health and wellness industry, historically it's been, older white men that are running it.
Yeah.
I'm Dominican, was raised in the inner city. My two partners, Dr. Davis and Dr. Haywood, they're African American, but both physicians. And one of the things that we're very passionate about is bringing what we're doing, this alternative type of medicine, to the Black and Brown community.
Definitely.
So, my next question for you is culturally competent therapies, like the way that you do your therapies with people from our communities. I would only assume it's a bit different.
So for me, it's that authentic piece of being who I am, living my true authentic self, and allowing my clientele to see that. And people know when you're disingenuous or you putting up a facade,
Right.
So for me, yes. But I think it's definitely important for everybody to be culturally competent in whoever you're working with. Not only from a standpoint of the subgroup of Black and Brown people, but just think about it. I got women clients, so I have to be culturally competent on
Of course.
women's issues as well. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think for those others, whether that's a therapist of a different ethnicity, yes, they definitely should be aware and culturally competent on the population that they're serving to work with. I work with a lot of LGBTQ plus community members as well. So it's important for me to understand the terminology, the disproportionate issues and events that they have occurring within their lives, the phobias that they may be having against them. So all those things are important. So yes, it's definitely important to be culturally
Yeah.
competent and aware of your own biases before you even work with these people. You get what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that be an issue with a lot of people too, who don't have that genuine authenticity and are aware of their biases, but they still treat these people, these clients or these patients, however you want to identify it, and it bleeds over. And people know that. And now they're getting hurt by, just think about how many people that you know or you've probably seen online that has church hurt. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing that
Oh
bleeds
yeah.
over from doctors, providers, therapists, and all those things. Like, and that would shut somebody down. Like, hey, I tried therapy, it didn't work because my therapist was a butthole, or my therapist didn't treat me fair, or whatever. So now you cast a shadow on the entire field, and this person was trash, and you could have potentially went to another therapist, and it could have been a different experience. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So, but a lot of people won't take the time or the resources to do that. Hey, I tried, it didn't work. This is probably gonna be the next experience if I go see somebody else. Even if that's the next town over or whatever, they probably gonna treat me the same way if I bring them this particular issue or what I'm going through.
Right.
Opposed to, hey, you know what? It didn't work with this person. Let me at least try somebody else. So yes, I would definitely encourage my colleagues out there to be culturally competent in who you're working with because it definitely can make an impact within this
It's
field.
important. Important. How important is faith in this process?
Yeah, so just depending on who you are and where you are, you want to ensure that you do have something to strive for and continue to put you in those situations of what to expect, not only from yourself, but from your community. And oftentimes to do that, you have to have that substance of, believing that things will be better or believing that it's greater on the other side. So faith is definitely important depending on where you are within your journey. And if you're in the field too, you want to ensure that you're doing a good job. So,
Right.
so all those things matter. And on the inverse of that too, it's a lot of people who don't seek services because they have that much faith. They think like, hey, this is all I need. But no, you can have therapists and your faith, and you can have other entities that you do to ensure that you are in a better position.
Yeah, I'm happy that you touched up on that because I've had people that are very strong into the word, and they're like, "Oh no, this is just God's plan." I'm like, "Hold on one second. God made sure that these therapists are here for you.
Correct.
You know, it's like there was a little saying that was like a boat. You're in the middle of the ocean. A boat is sent your way, and you no, God will save me. And God's
Another
like, yo,
boat,
I'm
another
sending you the
boat.
boat.
Yep.
So people got to recognize that God puts these tools
And
here.
it's definitely a sign too. And not only that too, I work with a lot of clergy. Just think about how much they take on from their congregations that they don't offload.
Right.
Like, what are you doing with this? I don't disagree with you praying to your deity and thinking that everything is be okay, but you still definitely, like you mentioned, have to offload that to somebody,
Yeah.
and oftentimes they don't. And you see the results of that from different fallouts or different things that they didn't process, unfortunately, that bleeds over to the congregation in some cases. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So, nah, faith is definitely important, but it can be a hindrance to people who don't take advantage of the other resources. But if you do get other resources, whether it's a therapist or do meditation and mindfulness, it doesn't negate the fact that you have strong faith.
I agree. What's the most damaging lesson for boys?
Most damaging lesson for boys, I think, at those early ages when the parental figures and or authority figures prevent them from doing things that they would consider to be gender neutral. Like, just think
Mm.
about I was in a store one time and this young boy wanted this easy bake oven. You know what I'm saying? So easy bake oven is one of those things that you can, make small pastries and stuff. So her response is, "Nah, baby, that's for girls. Let's get something else. Let's get you a truck or a bike or whatever the case is, whatever she said." I'm like, all right, cool. To me, that didn't make sense because cooking is a life skill. He can
Right.
learn early or whatever the case is. But the fascinating thing is, a couple weeks later, I'm in the grocery store with my daughter, and it appeared to be the same woman this time with a gentleman. And he asked her, or she asked one of the two asked, "Hey, what's for dinner?" Her response was, "It doesn't matter. You're not going to cook anyway." So
Mm.
instantly, I'm looking around. I'm trying to figure out if it's her because in my mind, I'm like, "Hey, you a couple weeks ago, you prevented your son from learning to cook or cooking with this easy bake oven, but now you're with somebody and you're complaining that he
Yeah.
doesn't cook."
Right.
Like that's the level of cognitive dissonance that people have.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think those are some of the damaging things, just disencouraging young males at an early age to be their authentic self or learn certain things because you think it's a crossroads of gender opposed to a life skill.
Yeah. I grew up kind of like that. Like my father, he doesn't cook. You know.
Yeah.
Now
So
I love to cook
in some cases, though, that was the way of life from
from
that
back
part
then.
of
Right.
society. One being Dominican, and then two, just those earlier men.
Hmm.
Those generations
They were
before
the
us.
workers, and they,
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know.
Listen, I had this coworker. He was what, probably in his 70s. Always crisp. Iron shop. You knew he would. His wife went out of town for 2 weeks. He came disheveled. Like, so everybody's like, "Yo, what's going on?" He was like, "Man, my wife normally,
Uh,
irons and do all these other things. I don't know what I'm doing,"
uh,
because he was the worker. All I know, I'm gonna do this. Like, they had a system within our
yeah.
dynamic. She did the cooking, she did the ironing and cleaning and stuff like that. So it was visible that he had no parts of that. And he never learned too, because as he was growing up, he was hunting with his dad and his uncles. He was doing construction, so it was just so
Yeah.
many entities where he didn't have to be hands-on with that stuff. But of course, visibly to us, it was like, bro, what is going on? When's she coming back? Because you look
Hmm.
terrible right now.
No, no, that actually happened. My mother, there's four of us. I'm the youngest out of four. My mother had to go back to the DR for like a funeral or something, and my dad stayed. And dude, when I tell my dad tried to cook, and he even said it. He ended up trying it after the fact. He says, "Man, I got to learn how to do something because whatever none of us would eat it, and we were kids." And after that, for the rest of the week, it was just nothing but the microwave TV dinners.
Yeah,
You know, but it's something that has been programmed as part of the culture.
correct.
And that should change.
No, so I think now is definitely shifting. I know for me, like just raising my young ones, man, it was more so gender neutral and explaining that to other people, like, yo, these are life skills, not
Hmm.
necessarily, he should learn how to cook or he should know how to iron and do different things because eventually he's gonna have a family and or he's at a minimum is gonna need it for his own survival,
Right.
you know?
So, James, right now there's a big movement happening called "Make America Healthy Again," and it has a hyper focus on figuring out the root cause of medical issues versus what we're so used to, which is looking at only treating the signs and symptoms.
Hmm.
With what you have going on, I already know based off today's conversation, it's not about just touching the signs and symptoms. You're going into the root.
Definitely.
So I want you to talk about how what you're doing defines what this movement is talking about when it talks about targeting the root cause versus just the superficial.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that movement, or I don't want to cast a shadow on that particular movement. But when we talk about root causes of different issues, and it sounds like if they do want to truly make America happy again, I'm all for it, and I'm glad they are touching that approach because when I first started in the field over 15, years ago, it always used to be separate. Physical, you see the doctor, they rarely, if any, overlapped with the mental side of things. And then from a mental side of things, you see a therapist, but they didn't touch on the physical side of things. But now, from a collective standpoint, we know that the mind and body is definitely connected. Like if you have hypertension, that can lead because you're overstressing or hypervigilant, or experience some traumatic events and stuff like that. Even linked to diabetes. Not only that, just the cause too from heart disease. That's the number one killer among men.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that. You can get that too from overstressing so many different things. So just viewing the body as one and having a holistic approach is definitely beneficial. But when we talked about the root causes of those things, we can go back to childhood. We can go back to those traumatic events and or those grief events that one didn't process that probably did have his nervous system out of whack. Which caused that chemical imbalance in the brain,
Right.
which caused dysregulation within the body, or those heart palpitations and so many different things that one didn't like address at a certain point. And then from a physical health standpoint, like just think about how many people don't get yearly physicals, dental exams, STI checks, and so many other factors. All those things can build up throughout too. Just think about if you haven't had a physical um, for X amount of years, like that plaque can build up around your arteries, and now all of a sudden you got a heart issue,
Right.
or your body is not pumping as much blood as it could be to certain parts, and now something that could have been prevented easily is now taking a lot or taking a toll. And then just another part of it, the mental side of things, like too, just think about the dementia side of it, or the autism side of it, or seizures and strokes and stuff like what I mentioned about my mom
Right.
earlier. A lot of those things now can be treated if caught early, or they can at least put you on some type of regimen to reduce different symptoms and signs and things like that. So I definitely think identifying the root can be beneficial.
It's extremely beneficial, man. Going back to this whole movement, man, one of the things too that they touch up on is all of this ultra processed foods, right? Like, especially the communities that we grew up in.
Yeah,
It's like all the chemicals in the
correct.
foods, all the coloring. One of the things they just changed right now is in the military, the MREs.
Mm.
That stuff is borderline poison. Those
Yeah,
MREs full of
listen though,
sodium.
full of
Yeah,
sodium, but
and they actually said it's like why are we treating our own military with this crazy poisonous food? And these are the
and most of
things
the
that
time, it comes down to funding and,
hmm
just being in a capitalistic society, specifically for those cultures who are, I guess, less fortunate or don't have the availability to have access to proper nutrition. And or with the military, they went with the lowest bidder. It
well,
wasn't like they was gonna fly in a chef to make these gourmet meals because,
right.
of course, budget wise, that was gonna be an issue. But just think about how probably more efficient and better the performance could have been if proper nutrition was there. I can
And it
think
can happen, man, because listen, as a kid, I'd go back to Dominican Republic, third world country, eating all organic, fresh,
nice.
everything. But that's how you go to Jamaica, you go to
Uh-huh.
Bahamas. That's how people are eating.
Yeah.
It's what our system here has
Correct.
the
And
big
it's
food companies, the big pharmaceutical
all
companies.
of it ties together, and it's
Mhm.
basically on capitalism, just from that standpoint alone. Because things can be, yes, a little bit more nutritious, and a little bit more affordable too, depending on where you
Right.
are. I just think about how many times you don't went to the store and soda flooded with sugar and all these other dyes and so many other factors is like 1.99, but a bottle of water is $3.
Right.
Same thing for burgers and all this other stuff. Those
Yeah.
things you can get two for $3, but a salad you paying $12.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of those things is beyond our control, but a lot of it too is, hey, you got to be disciplined and sacrifice enough.
Right.
But again, if you're talking to somebody from that area who don't have the ability to pay a little bit extra and or who's already working overtime and it's tight to spend our money on that.
Right.
Same thing for therapy. Do I want to take off work, go sit with somebody for an hour, or do I want to get this overtime?
Yeah.
Do I
Yeah.
want to drive all the way across town? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not really a luxury to them because they don't view it that way.
I agree, man. 100%. So, James, man, if the men in the world, their pain was heard, what would the world hear?
If the,
Yeah, because men keep the pain within a lot, you know?
so,
And when you think about if every man out there was able to express themselves,
sure.
what would this world be?
I think it'll be a lot of probably a lot of crying. Um,
Is it okay for men to cry?
Definitely okay. I got a topic in there on that too. So like when you cry, it does something to your body. It does something to your nervous system. Crying is a human function, not necessarily a woman function. So it clear out your tear ducts and so many other factors. But if men could express themselves and or express that pain outwardly, which some of them do, which is the unfortunate side of it, it comes out as reckless behavior, being promiscuous, substance use, all those factors. But if it can be expressed and come out in a healthy way, I think it'll definitely be beneficial for the families, your coworkers, your teammates, and all the people that you impact vicariously. I think it would definitely sound like, hey, I've been trying to tell you this, because think about it. Right now, it's a young boy or a man or whomever is saying, um, saying it,
Right.
but I'm just not articulating it in a way that you understand it. Because somebody right now is saying, baby, I tried to tell you this. And she's probably saying, well, you ain't telling me this. You started yelling, or hey, you just left the house or you just did, but to him, I'm telling you this. I'm processing this with you. But to her or to your partner, whomever, they're not understanding it because that's not you're not articulating it as, babe, I need your help. Or
Right.
hey, bro, I'm going through this. What would you do? It's not that easy for them to say. It's coming out as, oh man, why he drinking every weekend? Or why he with different women? Or why is he gambling like that? Why does he keep speeding? He getting all these speeding tickets.
Hmm.
It comes out as reckless behavior, being promiscuous, all those things, opposed to just verbally saying, I need help right now. I'm drowning.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not feeling like myself, So
James, before we wrap up, man,
yeah, man.
you got the cheesy
Cheesy
date.
dates,
I
man.
want you to talk about that because I find that very cool, attractive, you know?
I appreciate that, man. So ask yourself this: how many board game creators do you know?
None. Well,
Exactly.
one now.
One now. So one, that was my way of getting into an industry that's definitely not a lot of black people are in, and or just common daily people are in. Some people do have the cards and stuff like that, but this is an actual full pledged board game. So I created it during the pandemic, man, because I was even before the pandemic, I was seeing a lot of couples, but just during the pandemic, that 2+ years of people being stuck together, you realized they the people who I was encountering realized like I'm not compatible with this person. We together based on attraction, or we was together for what the kids, or we was together because at the time it worked, but we've outgrown each other. So I created the board game because again, like having different sessions with people, you realize that they drifted apart or didn't really know each other from the jump. So the board game is one of those things to not only get them to enhance that relationship, but to get back to the basics of that relationship, that root cause again. Because when y'all first got together, y'all was overly affectionate, showing love, going on date nights and stuff like that.
Right.
So in the board game itself, it comes with dice, it comes with pawn pieces, but it does come with two different card decks. One card deck is full of different date ideas because sometimes people run low on spontaneity. But you got to be intentional about dating your partner, even if y'all been together 50 years. You still want to
Right.
do that. And then the other card deck is just different questions that you can ask throughout just to make sure y'all growing at the same pace. So it's questions on intimacy, finances, social issues, lifestyles, living situations, just pretty much every situation that I encountered counseling different couples. I put it in this board game. And I did that because a lot of people too, you wind up being with this person, but you don't know truly who they are until you're in a
Mm.
situation. Can I depend on you? Are you
Right.
gonna be there when I need it? And one of the biggest ones while we're talking about men is like right now, you probably be partnering with a person, you thinking like, I got your back, you got mine thick and thin. But until you're in that situation, you realize like, yo, this person didn't hold me down. This happened with a couple that I was seeing. Husband, traditional, put wife through school. She wound up getting her bachelor's and her master's. When I say he put her through school, he put her through school, like paid for everything. Anyway, they had 3 kids at the time. At that time, they also was married for 8 years. So married eight
Mm.
years, 3 kids. He put her through school. Um, After that process, she started making money, working at a firm, pretty decent. He said, "Hey, babe, I want to take 6 months off. You take care of everything. I want to get this HVAC certification so I can start my own company."
Hmm.
Her response: 3 kids, 8 years of marriage, and he put her through school. Her response is, "I'm not taking care of no grown man."
Wow.
So even as a friend, what would you can pay him back as a friend? Like, hey,
Right.
you put me through school, I got you. You can take
At
you,
minimum.
you can take
Right.
6 months off. Go ahead. At a minimum, yes. But this is your husband and the father of your children.
Right.
You're not willing to sacrifice that because of what your psyche is telling you society will say.
Wow.
I'm not taking care of a grown man. So just as a decent person, y- go ahead, boss. Let me pay you back for you putting me through. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
And not only that, I can afford it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Ain't that
So
something?
just different stuff like that would engage discussions. Because think about if he would have asked this on the first date or as they were dating, he probably wouldn't have married her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But just think about how many other questions that you want to ask your partner that you didn't, or you probably fear asking them because you don't want the response, or you just don't know how to do it. Even from an intimacy standpoint, let's just say you want to spice it up, or you want to add somebody, or you want to use toys. You don't know how to ask that because you don't want to be judged. You don't want
Right.
them to think like you did this with somebody else, or why you want to get this, whatever. So it's a question in there on intimacy and finances
That's
and
pretty cool,
social
man.
issues. Yeah, yeah.
Where can
So
people find that?
on the website, www.mentoheal.com, www.mentoheal.com. The book is on there where as well, and my YouTube is on there too. My YouTube is Men to Heal.
Nice. James, as we wrap up here, man, if there is someone listening or viewing this podcast who really resonates with today's message,
Yeah.
what is that one thing you can leave them off with?
Ignore the perception of others. Just live for yourself in those moments and get the help that you may need. Ignore the perceptions. I know you probably think people would judge you if you talk to somebody, if you went to therapy. But ignore that perception. Get the help that you need because you can help yourself. Offset of that, you can help your family. Offset of that, you'll be able to help the community. And then, of course, it'll just continue to spread that way. But it starts with you. So ignore that perception of how you will be judged or viewed if you were to be vulnerable and or talk to somebody. So I would definitely say that.
Amazing. And where can people find you?
The easiest way is on the website, www.mentoheal.com, www.mentoheal.com. And then, of course, on there, you'll get to my social media, which is men_TO_HEAL. And then my YouTube is Men to Heal, MENTOHEAL. And then the book is on there, which is also on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, Walmart, so many other places. And it's called Man Just Express Yourself, which is an interactive planner guide for boys and men to better express themselves.
Amazing. And we'll include all those links down
My
below.
man, yeah, appreciate that.
So Brother, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. It's a message that the world needs.
Definitely. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Guys, you heard James. Don't feel like you're going to be judged. Take care of yourself. Make that commitment and take things to the next step. Get the book. It's a tool. Don't think that you're sick. It's all about us elevating and helping our community. If this message resonates with you or you think it might resonate with someone else, make sure you share it, comment, follow, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you for the next one.